good afternoon, good morning. And welcome to NWR Communications Virtual Copper Conference. Today we look at the extraordinary opportunities ahead of us in the global copper market. Three powerful drivers position copper for sustained price appreciation. Firstly, the accelerating global energy transition is driving high demand for renewable energy systems and electric vehicles. Secondly, aggressive government infrastructure spending is driving construction and industrial demand. And meanwhile, global supply capacity is badly constrained, with limited new mine development failing to meet projected growth. These factors conspire to support higher prices, creating a long-term structural opportunity for companies exposed to copper. And today we look forward to hearing from 6 exciting copper juniors positioned to leverage it. To set the stage and talk through the market, we'll first hear from our keynote presenter, John Forwood, Chief Investment Officer at Lowell Resources Funds Management. Lowell is a deep value equity fund focused on the junior resources sector and one that has copper as the fund's second largest exposure by commodity. Thank you for joining us here today, John. Please take it away when you're ready.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Alex, for the opportunity to have a quick chat to sort of set the background on the copper market. So yeah, look, I'm from the Lowell Resources Fund, and as Alex mentioned, second largest commodity exposure is copper. It's actually down somewhat from June as a result of a takeover of one of our largest copper holdings, New World Resources, and I think that's an interesting sort of demonstration of the dynamic in the copper market. That was a project in Arizona in the US that's fairly near-term development. And yeah, that's quite a sought-after space at the moment. And just in the last week, we've heard that the US Geological Survey is proposing to add copper to the US critical minerals list. So yeah, there's a huge amount of interest in copper coming out of North America. This is just put a bit of background, the 20-year copper price in US dollars in nominal terms. Look, it looks fairly like we're fairly towards the high end of that 20-year range. But when going to the next slide, you look at it in real terms, inflation adjusted terms, you can see that we're probably sort of in the mid-range. So it's certainly not overstretched in terms of the copper price at the moment. And I'm no technical chartist, but I did draw these two lines on there, and yeah, it looks like there's a bit of a wedge pattern forming, and there could be something technically happening fairly shortly based on that chart. As everyone knows, copper is often referred to as Dr. Copper, as a barometer of the world economic health, and that the copper-gold ratio, which I've shown here over 30 years, is at sort of fairly almost all-time lows. So that does sort of indicate that there might be some worries about the global economy. However, I think we've got to take into account that gold is at all-time highs, and a lot of that is being driven by central bank buying and de-dollarization from non-Western countries. So I think actually it's a little bit more the gold story rather than the copper story when you look at it from a Dr. Copper point of view. Just putting the copper market in context, copper is the largest base metals market, but fairly modest, about 10% of the oil market. But it is the most important base metals market, and larger than the next largest base metals market in aluminium. And similarly, you can see here over the last 20 years the relative values of various markets, and yeah, so copper well and truly out in front, then aluminium, nickel, and zinc, and a lot of the specialty metals after that. So we were just discussing before the webinar started, the tariffs that were supposed to be implemented in the US on copper. And you can see at the far right of this chart, the COMEX inventories, the warehouse inventories of copper. And they spiked up very substantially through the first half of 2025. And that was due to the threat of tariffs being imposed on refined copper. And you can see there was quite a movement from the Shanghai Futures Exchange to the COMEX as a result. And we heard about ships racing to get to Hawaii from Asia to get to port ahead of the tariffs deadline, which didn't eventuate, at least not for refined copper. Copper products are a different kettle of fish, but there's a substantial stockpile of refined copper in the US now. What happens to that? I guess it will depend on the arbitrages between the various markets. But look, I think that's a fairly short-term influence on the market. We certainly did see a very large arbitrage between US copper price and rest of the world copper price as a result of that, leading up to the tariffs decision, which, look, I think I understand that that has sort of been delayed or deferred and not completely refused. So we'll wait to see what happens perhaps in 2026. Just looking at where the big market for copper is, it is China. This shows that copper demand or consumption is about 60% in China of global demand. So what happens in China is seriously important for the copper market, and it is one of the largest consumptions in terms of commodities that China has as a percentage of global demand. Now, this is a really interesting chart and pretty critical for what happens to copper smelting and refining globally. So you can see on the left-hand side, that's mine production. China has about 8% of global mine production, but it's 44% of refining production. So China well and truly dominates global processing of copper concentrates, as it does with many commodities, many metals, from graphite through to rare earths, and that's as a result of a massive build out of treatment capacity in China. And we've heard, or there is treatment charges that are basically negative or zero as a result of the competition in China for copper concentrates. Now that is having an effect all over the place, particularly here in Australia. We're hearing about Mount Isa and the Townsville refineries under threat of shutdown because they just can't compete with zero refining costs in China. Glencore said they need maybe $2 billion to keep open for the next 7 years. Look, there's a massive decision to be made sort of collectively by the Western world. Do we want to allow China to take over copper refining, or do we become like, say, rare earths, or do we put massive money behind the treatment industry to help retain some independent supply? This is a very positive chart for copper consumption. You can see the growth in copper demand over the long term is absolutely inexorable. And you can see right at the top right of that chart, a forecast that copper consumption will move from about 28 odd million tonnes per annum this year to nearly 40 million tonnes possibly in just over 10 years' time. And once again, in China, its copper consumption also growing pretty inexorably, and we don't expect that to scale back or that growth to diminish in the near term, that's for sure. And just looking at 2025 in China, the various sectors where copper consumption comes from, obviously the real estate sector is still the sick man of their economy, but everywhere else, in particular, renewables power sector has seen strong demand growth in for copper, but also electric vehicles as well, and other uses for in the power grid and generation. So that's pretty, given China 60% of the demand, that's pretty positive. Just looking at recycling, obviously that's important, but and this data comes from the IEA, International Energy Agency. Copper recycling is actually well below 20%. Aluminium is the best at pushing 40%. Copper recycling is expected to grow as a percentage. I think that's probably due to the expectation that recycling from renewables and from electric vehicles will increase, but still it's not forecast to be the major contributor to copper supply, and that means new mines are required. Looking at the ASX share prices over the last year, this is just average share prices, data from Austex by commodity sector of where the various changes in share prices have come from. You can see the last 12 months, the big growth has been dominated by the specialty metals like antimony and rare earths, manganese, etc. Copper share prices on average on ASX actually up around a bit over 10%. So still doing quite well, but certainly if as an investor, we don't believe that, anyone's missed the boat in terms of getting exposure to copper equities. A lot of people will have seen this chart, but it definitely applies to copper mines, which can be some of the largest operations in hard rock mining. 18 years to get a new mine up and running. And the Resolution Copper Project in Arizona is one of the worst offenders on that sort of timescale. It's been over 25 years of trying to permit that operation, which would be well and truly the biggest copper mine in the US. And this is a picture of the leaders of BHP and Rio, who are the joint venture partners in that project, meeting with Donald Trump just a couple of weeks ago. So there is a big push in the US from the Trump administration to try and speed up that permitting process. And then once projects actually do get permitted and constructed, big copper mines take quite a long time to actually hit their straps. You can see from this chart that large-scale copper ramp-ups generally take at least 2 years to reach nameplate capacity. And then, for existing operations, there's always the disruptions. Most recently, we've seen disruptions due to accidents and industrial unrest in South America, in the giant copper mines in South America. But a couple of months ago, we had a seismic and flooding event in the Kamoa-Kakula copper mine in the DRC. You can see that in the brown. So there's almost always a challenge to hit production forecasts from copper miners. Okay, I'm nearly done, but leave you on this note. This is a forecast just from a few weeks ago from Bloomberg New Energy Finance. They see demand rising to 35 million tonnes per annum in 2035, in the next 10 years, from currently 27.5 million tonnes per annum and of supply. And they're saying supply might only grow by about 1.5 million tonnes per annum. So a big shortfall still forecast for copper by 2035. Finally, just a little plug. We have on Lowell have a little webinar. We're going to be interviewing various geologists. Next one is this Friday. we're interviewing Julian Hanna, who led Mod Resources, which made a great copper discovery in Botswana and got taken out a number of years ago. So if anyone's interested, please log on to that. But I will leave it there, and Alex, turn it over to any Q&A.
Thanks very much, John. Really appreciate your time running through the copper keynote presentation there. We have hit the time limit though. Sorry, John. So we'll have to skip past the questions, unfortunately, this time. But we'll have to keep plodding on. But I think you covered pretty much most of the ones I had up my sleeve anyway while you were talking. So thanks again, John. That was really good. Really appreciate you presenting today. We'll move forward to our first company presentation. So next up, we have Strategic Energy Resources. It's a Queensland-focused Copper-Gold Explorer with a portfolio of 4 highly prospective projects. This includes Diamantina, an advanced exploration asset recently acquired from Anglo-American, and a series of drill programs across all 4 projects in the portfolio will deliver sustained news flow for the next 12 months. Here to talk about it today is SER's Managing Director, David DeTata. Please take it away, David, and welcome today.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone, for joining NWR's Copper Virtual Conference. We've just seen John Forwood put together a pretty exciting time for in the short term and long term for copper. And today I'm going to run you through, as Alex mentioned, our 4 major copper projects. We're all set to take advantage of those tailwinds over the next 12 months as we set to get on ground and drilling in search of Australia's next major copper deposit. Firstly, the corporate overview. You'll see the directors that sit next to me on the board. Plenty of youth, but also experience and competence in identifying projects, but then evaluating and getting on ground and doing the exploring. The cash balance, we've raised some money recently in T1, T2, the second tranche will settle at the end of this month. And that'll see us cashed up with half of the amount of cash as our current market cap to explore the 4 projects that you can see on the bottom of the screen across all in Queensland. So there's plenty of room within Queensland for the next major discovery. And we've got 4 projects over huge land areas that we look to drill in the next 12 months in search of that next discovery. This is the main game. This is the page that says everything about what's happening in the company in the next 12 months. You'll see the projects we've got on the left, and then the timeline of how we get to be on ground drilling each one of these projects in the next 12 months. First of all, the Isa North project, ex-Newcrest project undercover. We'll go into some detail shortly, but we're at the stage now where we will have earthworks starting at the end of this month, a drill rig spinning up this month that'll see us test 2 major targets that Newcrest wanted to test when they had the project, but simply weren't able to. The Kenobi project is being explored with FMG. They're earning into the project, and just last month they committed to a $3 million budget to drill 4 holes between now and the middle of next year, searching a tier 1 size copper deposit. They are in it for the big numbers of copper, and they have chosen SER's Kenobi project within Queensland to be that project in the next 12 months. The Diamantina project we announced last month, that was the acquisition from Anglo-American, and that has taken us from a junior explorer looking for a discovery to then buying essentially some fantastic intercepts that puts us in great stead to get on ground and follow up in the next 12 months. Lastly, the Bulimba Gold project, since 2023, when we first identified this project, which is also an ex-Newcrest ground. We've started on-ground activities just last week, and I'll be on ground next week. Preparations are now underway for us to get on and start drilling that gold project early next year. So you can see 4 projects with a commitment to be drilling across all of them in the next year. And the difference between us and other juniors is how we then make that dollar that we've raised just recently go even further across those projects. And I'll roll through that as we get through the presentation. Firstly, let's just touch on the acquisition of the Diamantina project. This project sat within Anglo-American since 2018. Little to no outward focus news or information about exactly what they were doing and why they were doing it. And you can see the area in the bottom of the screen, the 2 project tenements that we've picked up as part of this project. We've now added 3 more tenements to the larger project area. And you can see from 2018 through to 2021, a lot of background work was done by Anglo-American. And then between 2021 and 23, a whole range of diamond holes were put into this project. Essentially, what they did was follow up on two major previous exploration efforts that were undertaken by Red Metal. And they followed up with some significant diamond drilling and some shallow drilling at the Elizabeth Springs East and West project areas. And you can see as we go to some intercept tables here, you can see DTD 002, 161 meters of 0.4 copper, with higher grade sections within that intercept, including 0.67 at 25.6% copper. So this was their first immediate follow-up hole at Elizabeth Springs East, and they did much better than what was done previously. What you can see in the following list of intercepts that go on from DTD 002 is a number of shallow and deeper holes in and around the prospect area, which take that mineralizing extent from the single drill hole to what is now a 4 by 2 kilometer area of highly prospective copper undercover. And this includes some shallow drilling, which is some obvious places for us to get back to the moment we can get on ground. And that's off 400 meters to the west, where they've intersected 0.5% copper over 6.5 meters as part of a shallow drilling program that was undertaken by Anglo-American. We have a look at that in cross section here. It's in Elizabeth Springs East, 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers, with exploration drill holes intercepting mineralization 400 meters plus apart in the north west direction off to the southwest. Plenty of areas for us to follow up on from these original drill holes that were undertaken. We have a look then at the Elizabeth Springs West project, 2 drill holes done by Anglo-American, following up on some historical drill holes by Red Metal. And here we have 300 meters apart. We're hitting mineralization at different depths, but at large extents. So this 1.3 by 1 kilometer anomaly that we will be going up and following up on recently or in the next 12 months, there's plenty of room for higher grade, shallower intercepts right across this project area. We quickly have a look at the consideration for the project. As I said, we managed to buy this project. This is 100% ours once it moves through the tenement transfer process within Queensland. $300,000 cash and $300,000 in shares. This puts Anglo-American firmly on our register, which is a fantastic place to have a major on board, but also sees small amounts of cash going out and allows us to then get on ground and spend the cash that we've raised to test not only the Elizabeth Springs East and West, but a number of anomalies that would have been identified in the immediate area to these 2 prospects. We put forward a program as part of the transfer of this project to Anglo-American, which will see us spending $1 million over the next 2 years, largely offset by an R&D activities that we're able to take on as part of being involved in this project, and some preliminary activities that we see happening in the next 12 months. The big opportunity for us is to understand the correlation between where the drill holes were and the underlying magnetic and gravity signatures. So immediate place for us to start is to go and improve the mag and the grav, which will see us better target in a round of drilling to start next year. Obviously, there were some shallower holes that intersected mineralization, and an easy place for us to start alongside that is to simply re-drill where we've started. We know we can hit mineralization in the first 6.5 meters at 0.5% copper at DCT 010. So then the depth extent and whether grades are increased from that point is an obvious place for us. And there you can see in the top right-hand corner that 25.6% assayed intercept from DTD 002. As I mentioned, the first program that we get underway is at our Nkandu prospect on our Eisen North project. Just to give you some context here, we are 100 k's north of Mount Oxide and Aquila, True North Copper, of course, and 29 Metals Capricorn deposits. We follow the Mount Gordon fault undercover to this central area. You have the Nkandu prospect. We find ourselves surrounded by FMG and Anglo-American. Obviously, they're looking for the same thing we are, tier 1 style copper undercover. Zooming into that Nkandu prospect, this is the Nkandu cluster that we'll be targeting in this drill program coming up, as I said, to start this month. This Nkandu prospect in the middle was identified by Newcrest as the next place to drill. They were unable to get on ground due to land access since taking on this project. We've cleared that all way for land access. We have native title clearances. We'll be starting earthworks, as I've mentioned, this month, and we'll be targeting the N8 and the N7 prospects. And just to give you an idea of what we are targeting, these are large size magnetic targets undercover. The first drill hole, N8, $275,000 from the Queensland government, thank you, to allow us to get on ground and drill that one. The second one, which will follow from that first drill hole, is also covered under an R&D rebate for this project. So we'll see a $600,000 project done for not even a third of the cost. As I've mentioned, the size and scale of these drill holes that they're targeting, we're good enough for Newcrest to put money behind, but we're unable to. Definitely good enough for us as a junior explorer to get on ground and test. As I mentioned, earthworks this month, drilling next month. The third project I'm going to touch on is the one that is being explored with our partners Fortescue. And this all started back in 2023 when they identified this area of ground north. We're here about 140 kilometres north of Ernest Henry along the Kiddie suture zone, so the same suture zone that heads back to Ernest Henry undercover. They identified this project within SER. They approached SER. We then struck up an $8 million 6-year joint venture agreement where SER is operating and retains a 5% operator fee and also gets our wages paid while we explore. First year on ground, 3 drill holes, trace levels of copper, but enough to get back into the program. Last month, as mentioned, $3 million exploration budget was approved by the exploration committee with a view to get on ground and drill 2 holes to 3 holes as soon as possible this year. Later on this month, we'll have a native title clearance running across those areas that we've identified. We have an MT survey currently underway across the same prospects we are targeting. We see ourselves drilling this project until the weather turns right up to the end of the year. And lastly, I'll finish on the Bulimba Gold project. This project, as I said, also Newcrest. We found ourselves on site last week doing initial site recon visit. I'll be on site next week, further site recon visits, meeting with landholders. We see this project as a lot shallower than the other 3 projects we've already managed, so we're going to move straight from initial site recon straight into exploratory drilling. We see the weather closing out this year. That means early next year we'll be on ground to do a shallow period of drilling across these targets to the eastern side of the project area. And this project area, as we trace back this major fault, the Gambula Palmerville fault, you can see some, obviously, King Vol, Red Dome, Mangana. This is 2.7+ million ounces of gold sitting along the same structures within 100 kilometres away. This is an ex-Newcrest project that we're there for the same reasons we are, targeting significant gold mineralisation undercover. So to summarise the SER, where we are quite at this very moment, we have 4 major copper-gold projects within Queensland, all that have the obstacles removed that will see us drilling across all 4 of them in the next 12 months. With Diamantina, we've managed to take from Anglo-American $30 million of historical expenditure, wrap that up in a project which has got some significant drill holes already, and we have everything in front of us to get on ground and target not only the same mineralisation, but more mineralisation of the existing prospects and the ones that are now being recently identified. The only way to deliver results for shareholders is to get on ground and drill. And we've got those projects ahead of us, and we're set to do that all starting this month. Mentioned the strategic advantage to the way of the SER goes about handling our capital expenditure, and that's to leverage all of our projects with not just government funding, but R&D. And that'll see us taking the money we've raised recently, drilling all the way through to the middle of next year in the chance of making Australia's next copper discovery. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, David. Thanks for running through that. You've got many ways to win there, and you're exercising great capital efficiency. So the money you raised recently will go a long way to helping uncover what you've got at each of those 4 exciting projects, and a steady stream of news flow ahead. Got a few minutes for a few questions. So you touched on it briefly there, but just wanted to ask a bit more. Will the Anglo acquisition translate to them being a significant investor on your register when that's all settled and sorted?
That's right. They'll hit just under 5% by the time the T2 settlement has occurred. and both stage payments. So the first payment is based on tenement transfer, ensuring that there's no regulatory hurdles for getting the project. The second one is based on the transfer of native title deed of assignments. So we wanted to make sure in putting this agreement back and forth with Anglo that there were no impediments from native title or landholders to us exploring, and that'll settle, we're hoping, for early next year, which will then allow us to get on ground. We have actually been out there and visited the site. We've walked across the holes. We had a fantastic site visit with our friends at Anglo-American, and the data transfer from all the geophysics that was collected, as well as all the additional drill hole data, is slowly coming through, and we'll be working our way through that over the next few months.
Very good. One other question. So as well as having Anglo in your orbit, you've also got Fortescue, so got some pretty big names. So you've got them as a JV with Kenobi, you mentioned. They've just allocated $3 million to the project for the year, so they obviously seem pretty committed, pretty excited about it. What do you think they're seeing there?
Well, just to back over that, so the $3 million that they've approved in their exploration budget for this year does not include any of the current geophysics that's underway right now. So there's an MT, so magnetotelluric survey across 4 prospects that they want to drill. That's underway. That'll finish in the next month. There's a gravity survey that's just finished, and prior to that, a number of preceding gravity surveys. So they've taken their time over the last year and a half to develop these targets. And Fortescue won't drill anything unless there's a chance of having a significant mineralized body at the end of it. Put into perspective, the first year of drilling, we were drilling plus 1,000-meter holes before we started hitting anything of the magnetic body, which is what they're targeting. And the same goes for this next drill program. It's an investment of $3 million, but essentially all of that is on salaries and putting the hole in the ground. So their view is that they're not going to commit that sort of expenditure unless what is potentially the end of the drill string is something of significant size, enough for Fortescue to move forward with.
Excellent. Sounds great. We'll have to wrap it up there, David, but thank you for presenting today. Thank you for your time. We'll be keeping a close watch on how things unfold from here. Looks very exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. So for our next presentation, we've got Norfolk Metals, which has recently acquired the transformational Carmen copper project in Chile. Given the potential for extensive soluble copper oxide mineralization from surface, the company vision is to develop Carmen as a low-cost, high-margin, value-accretive heap leaching operation, whilst it evaluates the significant shallow sulfide potential below the oxide cap. Norfolk is fully funded and will be drilling throughout the remainder of 2025. And here to talk about the company today is Jason Greive, Director at Transcendence Mining. Welcome today, Jason. Please take it away when you're ready.
Thanks very much, Alex. I'm just getting the presentation organised here. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak to the attendees today about the Carmen Copper Project in Chile. I'm going to kick, as Alex has alluded to, our prime purpose and objective for the Carmen Copper Project is to define a copper oxide resource of sufficient scale to support a low-cost, high-margin heap leaching operation, while simultaneously unlocking the substantial shallow sulfide potential below the oxide cap of the project. And with that in mind, I'd just like to go through some key messages for the presentation. The first one is, and there's probably been a fair bit of discussion about this already this morning, no doubt, from John, but let's talk a little bit about copper as a commodity. Copper powers progress. Copper is, in all senses of the word, the backbone of electrification and global growth. It's absolutely pivotal to the green energy transition, and whether we're talking about EVs or data rooms, the growth potential for copper is very, very significant, and supply gaps are driving, obviously, long-term upside in the price. Copper, there is no denying the strong fundamentals, making copper a very compelling investment opportunity into the foreseeable future. And I think what's also of note is, as of the 25th of August, copper has also been included on the US list of critical minerals, and the IEA's 2025 annual global critical minerals outlook also suggests that the current copper mine project pipeline is pointing towards a 30% supply deficit by 2035. Just a little bit about board and management, which you guys can read in your leisure. So a couple of key messages and value proposition, which you guys can pack into your party bags and take home with you today, is we've spoken a little bit about copper and now I want to talk a little bit about Chile. In terms of destination, you couldn't get better for copper. Chile is one of the world's largest producers of copper. In fact, it's the single largest producer, producing around a quarter of the world's copper, and many of the world's majors have a mining presence in Chile. It also hosts about a fifth of the world's known copper reserves. There are more than 60 copper mines in Chile, with over 24 copper heap leaching operations, providing a proven platform for Norfolk's vision and the Carmen Copper Project. In terms of the project itself, very strong exploration, res dev and development potential, backed by a proven team. So the project area itself plays host to a historical shallow copper oxide resource, which when performed only covered about 5% of the strike length of the two known mineralised belt systems. More on that later in the presentation. Previous test work indicates that the oxide ore metallurgy and other project characteristics are very conducive to low capex style copper heap leaching methodology. The Transcendence mining team that backs Norfolk bring an experienced resource development team and project development experience, with Chilean experience as well. The sulfide mineralisation beneath the oxide cap also warrants mention, and we'll talk more about that in the presentation. Importantly, the company is fully funded and we're moving very fast with the maiden drilling campaign already underway. In terms of project overview, the Carmen Copper Project is easily accessible from the Chilean capital of Santiago via La Serena. It's about 82 kilometres southeast of Vallenar, which is a fully serviced mining hub on very good roads. The project is at very modest altitude, which is quite important for Chile, at 1,800 metres, meaning that it's easily accessible all year round. And to substantiate that, we're currently drilling on the project, and it's the middle of winter in Chile. The project area is proximal to power and port infrastructure, which is obviously a significant consideration for future project development. There's over 46 square kilometres of highly prospective tenure that hosts historical copper resource. There's over 10 kilometres of historical drilling with significant diamond core, extensive geophysics by way of IP that have been completed by previous operators. Regionally, the Carmen Copper Project is situated on the western flank of the highly prospective pre-Cordillera of Chile, within the regionally extensive north-trending San Felix fault system. This belt plays host to a number of deposits, and notably for us, the Relincho Copper Moly Porphyry Project, which is currently 2.25 billion tonnes at 0.36% copper, which is about 16 kilometres to the north-northeast of the Carmen Copper Project, and the Fortuna Copper-Gold Porphyry, which is 1.37 billion tonnes at 0.42 copper and 0.38 gold, located 40 kilometres to the east of us. Both projects owned by a joint venture between Teck and Newmont. In terms of base camp for us, we have set up a base camp in the town of Alta de Carmen, which is where the project draws its name. It's an Andean village nestled deep in an Atacama Valley. You can see a picture of it there on the left. Alta de Carmen can be reached via sealed roads from La Serena via Vallenar, and it's only about 50 minutes drive from Vallenar, which is a well-serviced mining hub. Access between Vallenar, Alta de Carmen and site is year-round, and the town of Alta de Carmen itself pretty much provides everything we need to run exploration activities on the site. Just want to run through a couple of project highlights. The company has commenced drilling, and it's fully funded through to completion of its maiden drilling program, with significant news flow expected in the coming months. Substantial historical drilling, geophysics, and a historical resource with over 30,000 tonnes of contained copper in a shallow copper oxide resource with demonstrated characteristics that are conducive to cost-effective, high-margin heap leaching style process methodology in the future. The tenement package, 46.5 square kilometres, has high copper oxide and copper sulfide potential over an extensive 15 kilometres of strike length over 2 separate mineralised belt systems, which I'll talk to now. The Carmen Tobacco Belt on the project area, which is the one to the north here, is over 7.5 kilometres long, and it hosts the historical 2007 SRK resource of over 33,000 tonnes of contained copper, which back when it was done was NI 43-101 compliant for various reasons, no longer. But that utilised 74 holes and about 6,000 metres of historical drilling. It was completed by IPBX 2003 to 2006. There is the Higueritas Belt. It's also approximately 7.5 kilometres long and subparallel to the Carmen Tobacco Fault. And there are sporadic old workings along this area, no drilling, but data is over the area is limited to geophysics and rock chip samples. The historical mineral resource estimate is contained within an area that only represents about 5% of the total 15 kilometres of prospective strike length of the 2 major geological belts within the project area. Other larger non-compliant historical resource estimates have been completed using drilling from as far back as the 60s, 64 to 66, completed by CMM. Some of these historical estimates utilise obviously holes that are non-compliant within NI 43-101 and JORC compliant constraints. There's very good congruency, and this is very important, but there's very good congruency across the 2 belts between IP geophysics mapping, geological mapping and geochemistry, which not only provides the geologist with an exceptional exploration tool, but it's also yielded several very compelling exploration targets along strike. There's excellent upside to the northeast and the southwest of the Carmen Main, which is indicated by mapping geophysics and soil geochem. The potential for discovering at least 3 or more additional oxide zones similar to Carmen Main, we believe, is significant. This is a view taken standing on Carmen Main, looking southwest down the Carmen Main structure towards Tobacco, with the Dolores prospect over the hill. So that gives some impression of the size and scale of these mineralised belt systems. In terms of the oxide mineralisation, when we look at Carmen Main in section, we can see the copper oxide zone, which we refer to as the COS, which runs from surface down to 40 metres, shown here as the green cap. At 40 metres, we rapidly transition into primary sulfides with a very, very minor transitional zone. The COS resource is currently open in all directions. COS mineralisation includes chrysocolla, malachite, atacamite, and a number of other copper oxide minerals, including copper pitch. As mentioned, it typically runs down to about 40 metres in depth. From geophysics and geochem, the known COS mineralisation at Carmen Main is at least 2.8 kilometres long and up to 800 metres wide, with less than 25% of that area and strike length currently subject to drill testing. We believe there's very good potential to increase the resource with step-out fence line drilling to the northeast and southwest from the Carmen Main historical resource. And I'll just quickly flick to a few of the historical oxide hits. I won't go through these by line item. You can review these in your leisure, but that gives you a bit of a flavour for some of the historical intercepts inside and also outside of the historical Carmen oxide resource. I also alluded to earlier the fact that this mineralisation is very conducive to heap leach style processing methodology, and there has been a number of historical test work, bottle rolls and column tests done, and these columns demonstrate copper solubilities in the order of 85 to 90%, with recoveries in the order of 70 to 80%, using very reasonable, modest acid consumptions at very standard crush sizes. So as we go on through the maiden drilling program, we will be doing some more confirmatory metallurgical test work. And it's definitely worth noting that below the oxide cap, we have substantial sulfide potential, and these are some of the historical intercepts that we have encountered. You can review those in your leisure. In terms of the maiden drilling program underway at Carmen Copper at the moment, 5,100 metres of drilling is planned. We kicked off the program on the 10th of August. Phase 1 will be RC. We'll focus on shorter holes across the COS, on fence lines of around 100 to 200 metre step outs to the northeast and southwest. Then we'll follow up with diamond drilling. Diamond drilling will focus on the deeper sulfides and potential below the copper oxide mineralised COS, as well as other regional and very compelling, I might say, regional IP soil geochem targets that are both to the northeast and southwest of Carmen Main. The drilling will basically be a combination of validating past intercepts, twinning, and resource estimation holes, as well as expanding the current known resource area, historical resource area. And then we'll also be exploring the deeper sulfide potential in vertical section below the COS at Carmen Main. The maiden drilling program will be focused on validating the historical copper oxide resource at Carmen Main and expanding the COS out along strike to the northeast and southwest, as well as in the footwalls and hanging walls of the Carmen Tobacco thrust fault system. Our aspirational target at this stage is delineating a major JORC compliant resource by Q2 2026 at a discovery cost, we believe, of something in the order of $35 to $50 a tonne, which speaks to the shallow nature of the mineralisation and our ability to operate very effectively in this area. During this program, both historical diamond core and new core that we generate from the program will also be assayed for gold and other precious metals, which interestingly was never done in the past. And just to close, a quick corporate snapshot of Norfolk Metals, and the key takeaways here: very tight capital structure. Currently, once the recent capital raise is fully issued, there'll be about 80 million shares on issue. Very well managed by Ben Phillips and the team at Norfolk. Most importantly, for the purposes of the exploration plan we've spoken about today, we are fully funded through until the completion of our maiden drilling program, recent capital raising well oversubscribed. And we believe this will be an extremely busy time for us, with a lot of news flow ahead of us over the next 3 to 4 months as we announce our drilling results and various other work streams, such as the reassaying of the core and ongoing confirmatory metallurgical test work.
Excellent.
So just to reinforce a couple of messages before I close, copper is the commodity and Chile is the right address. Carmen Copper Project, strong res dev development potential and backed by a proven team. And we're fully funded and we're moving very quickly at the moment. Over to you, Alex.
Great. Thank you, Jason. Thanks very much for running us through. That sounds like exciting times ahead, and well done for getting your hands on this project. It sounds like you've got a really good opportunity in your hands there. We'll move forwards to the next presentation now. So thanks again, Jason. And then we'll move the mic over to Beltz Mining next, which is an Australian public unlisted company founded by Nkandu Beltz in 2019. Through its Zambian registered subsidiary, Kapane Mineral Resources Limited, the company owns various mineral exploration rights in Zambia, located near world-class copper deposits. Beltz Mining is positioned to become a leading copper exploration company in Africa while driving economic growth in the communities in which it operates. And here to talk about the company today is founding director Nkandu Beltz and non-executive director Jeff Foster. Please take it away, Nkandu and Jeff.
Hello and good afternoon. Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. It will just be me at the moment. Jeff will not be joining us. So what I would do is I would just go straight into it. All right, so the disclaimer, my lawyer says it's very important that we go past that. I am the founding director of Beltz Mining Limited. As you can see, we have got a really good board that have got the Zambia experience, both here in Australia as well as in Zambia. Why Zambia? I will skip that for now. We know that it's the second largest producer of copper at one point in the world. And as you can see, we have been ranked second in Africa. We're sitting on the Lufilian Arc, which most of you are familiar with. And as you can see from Maikesa, where our two flagship projects are, the Mwekera project, which is the traditional copper belt in Ndola, my hometown, and then the Luswishi project, which is in the northwestern province, where there's quite a lot of activities happening there with the likes of Kansanshi and Lumwana. This is a map of Zambia in a nutshell. The project itself has got a mineralization of about 7.5 kilometers. And this is the Mwekera belt. The works that we have done so far, we have done some geochemical work. And as you can see, we've received some really good results, very encouraging results. And one of the things that I really like about this project, other than it being in my hometown, is that it sits very close to a frontier mine here in the DRC. And we've got their tailings here, and we are about 7.5 kilometers from frontier. We've also done some IP, and as you can see, we are all getting very good results as well for our IP program. In this little box here, we do have a Chinese mine which has been in operation for quite some time, Macrolink. And these guys, they did hit copper at 20 meters with the ranges of 1.1%. So my understanding is that we've got the shallow bits in here, and then we've got sort of a deeper deposit down here. So from these targets which have been generated from the IP, we have designed a drilling program. So we are going to make about 16 holes along this area and there for the target. And as you can see, we do have that sort of frontier style type of mineralization. And we are hoping that the results will be quite encouraging. The works that we have done so far, they're showing to be very, very good results. So this is one of the maps which you can see from where the Chinese are operating, right in there. And then these are the targets that we intend to drill this month, actually. So the proposed program is to do a 4,000 to 5,000 drilling program on the identified mineralization, and then and then after that we will conduct a scoping and feasibility study, and and then design safe and efficient plans. The second project is the Mwekera project, which is quite large. And this one sits in northwestern province. As you can see, it's on the Luswishi Dome, just on the edge of the dome there. This project initially, when we acquired it, it was almost 500 square kilometers of land, so we had to have it. And that was after we did some geochemical work. we've done some sampling of the program, of this license in particular, and our main areas of interest, as you can see, are just this part of the license, as well as just under what is classified as a dumbo in that area. We've also identified some targets, which were the works were done by Vale. The idea is to go back and now do an IP program on this particular anomaly. And as you can see, they're quite large and quite good as well. So our investment highlights is that, there is a lot of historical and initial exploration data that we've been able to acquire, not only from the Zambian government, but then also from other sources. The project for the Ndola Mwekera is on strike from the giant frontier mine. And the copper belt itself, there's a lot of mines which are in the area. We're not far from Mufarila, for example, and other areas. There is a strong demand for copper, as Jason mentioned, and as we transition to the renewable energies, and the copper prices have been stable for quite some time. There's also opportunities to joint venture, and I'm sure you know that the Zambian government has been very active in trying to bring investment into the country. So I will leave it to that, and I'm sure we will be able to share this presentation. Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you, Nkandu. That was great. Really good. Nice quick synopsis of everything you're doing at Beltz. We've got time for a few questions. I've got a few questions that have come in, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
Well, you touched on it just briefly at the end, but in terms of support from, you talked about government support, but what support have you received in Zambia to advance the company and progress your 2 copper projects?
One of the things that we're receiving from the Zambian government is they've identified that, they know that Zambia needs this investment. We've had a history in the past that hasn't worked in our favor. So with the current administration, they've invested significant amounts of money into the exploration. And one of the things that we are receiving is access to data, because, if you don't have adequate data, it's very hard to advance the projects. And then the other is the cadastre system. It's digital now, so everything can be applied online, which is far much easier. ZCCM has got, which is an investment arm for Zambia, for the government. They've got some cash with them, so they are too willing to joint venture with other companies in terms of financing some of these projects. So we work very closely with the Geological Survey as well, and share ideas and see what their geologists have to offer that we may not have.
Good collaboration opportunities there.
Yes.
Now, with you being a unlisted company at the moment and seeking to list on the ASX potentially, would you consider IPO or RTO as either of those be suitable options or preferred options in the current market?
Well, I think a reverse takeover would be quite ideal at the moment. Yes. So we've been having some advanced conversations with a number of shells here in Australia, and that I think that would be the best route for us. We do have an opportunity to get more projects into the company, but first we need to put some drill holes into Mwekera as well as Luswishi.
And do you have a timeline in mind for doing that?
Yes. Yes. So the drilling program is already in place, and all the approvals, all the permits have been granted, so we are good to go. And depending on the outcome of the meeting this afternoon, we may be making some announcements as early as next week.
Okay, well, exciting times indeed. Oh, that's good, Nkandu. Well, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate you dialing in and running us all through the opportunity you have in front of you. Thank you very much. We'll move forwards to, from Zambia to Canada next. We've got Gladiator Metals, code TSXVGL80. Gladiator is advancing the high-grade Whitehorse copper project in Yukon, Canada, a world-class asset comprising a 35-kilometre-long skarn copper belt that has previously produced copper. Drilling is currently focused on multiple near-surface high-grade copper prospects, including Cowley Park, Cub Trend, and Best Chance, and is targeting a high-grade inferred copper resource of more than 100 million tonnes. So, very significant scale. Here to talk through this exciting copper opportunity is Gladiator's VP of Corporate Development, Olav Langelaar. Good evening, Olav, and please take it away.
Hi, Alex. Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. Let me pull up my screen here. So my name is Olav Langelaar. I'm with Gladiator Metals. I've been with the company for approximately just going on a year. And by background, I was previously an engineer, worked with most of the major Canadian mining companies for about 10 years. Went into investment banking for 25 years and then came across this project and thought this was something that nobody in Canada seemed to know about. And the grades were spectacular and the size is quite compelling. And so I joined as VP Corp Dev in October. So I'll just walk you through what we have. So we have what's called the Whitehorse Copper Project. This is a belt that's 35 kilometers long. It's primarily a skarn belt. Previously in production for about 15 years with a very small mine around the the Middle Chief, Little Chief area. We have four prominent belts. Cowley Park, lump that in with Cub Trend, that's our flagship asset. The Chief's Trend, where the historic mining occurred. Arctic Chief Trend is now showing some very strong promise for exploration success, and the Hat Trend. So generally speaking, our objective here is to delineate 100 million tons of resource along the trend. Cowley Park is where we're focusing most of our efforts right now. Over 300 drill holes have been completed in the last number of years, and we continue to drill and expand it. Most importantly, the grades are all trending around the 0.75, 0.77 to 1%, with some spectacular grades of 8, 9, 10% along the way. So the leadership team, the project was put together by Jason Bontempo, who's out of Perth, Marcus Harden, who is with First Quantum, Cal Nielsen, ex-Placer, geologist, myself. I've told a little about myself already. Matt Roma is our CFO. He was previously with Snowline Gold, which is a very successful Canadian Yukon-based gold exploration company. Darren Devine is our chairman, and Sean Kunkun, who's the CEO of Dolly Varden, is also a director. Our share base is, we have 79 million shares outstanding. We just recently announced the financing, which will close around September 9th, which will add another 18.7 million shares. Additionally, we still owe the vendors of the project around 11 million shares due in the next 3 years. So all up, you're looking at roughly 109 million shares on a fully diluted basis, and we have over $30 million of cash. So we're well funded for the balance of this year and well into next year, probably around this time. Our shareholder base consists primarily 32% retail, management and insiders, technical advisors, friends and associates are 38%. Institutionally, we're 22%. And the Coyne family, who are the vendors of the project, who are also what we call Kwanlin Dun First Nations members, whose traditional territory our project resides, own 8%. This stock is very heavily held by institutions. There are over 9 institutions, and with the recent financing is probably closer to 12. Macquarie Bank out of Australia is a big supporter, as are Mackenzie and 1832 out of Toronto, Arimco and Ixios. Those are the publicly disclosed institutional shareholders. We have research coverage by Cormark Securities, who just led our recent financing, Stefan Ayanu, and Joe Mazumdar, Exploration Insights, along with Barrack at Beacon, provide coverage. So Cowley Park, we have over 300 holes into Cowley Park. It's still open at on strike to the east and the west. It's open at depth. And just recently, we've been drilling some holes beneath the 200-meter buffer, 250 meters, and have intersected some pretty significant mineralization, which has all of us quite excited that maybe we've got a tiger by the tail here. So our initial objective was to delineate Cowley Park, where we spent most of our efforts drilling, and we're going to move uptrend to a number of other very promising exploration targets as well. Some of the high-grade intercepts you'll see here, 84 meters, 16 meters at 6.37, 36 meters of 2.28, 71 meters at 1.1, 27 at 2.74. We didn't discover this high-grade zone until late last year, and so we've now started to delineate that going forward. So the deposit is still open to the east and to the west. And in the east, it bifurcates into two legs, which are both giving us some very spectacular grades, 20 meters at 5.53, 14 at 7.67, and then 4 meters at 1.24. So lots of upside still on the strike extents. And as we've recently discovered, we're open at depth, and I'll discuss that in the next slide. So this year, we decided we would try to drill below the 200-meter limit, which we always said was on account of the fact that we were, sort of trying to remain near surface where we thought all of the mineralization occurred. We drilled a deep hole this year that brought back 55 meters at 0.7% copper, plus a little bit of gold, 0.01 gold, 2.61 silver, and 154 ppm moly. So we have 21 meters at 1.27 copper from 199 meters vertical depth down. We're now awaiting assays on CPG 095. So again, extending this at depth was one of our objectives this year, and I think we've more than accomplished that, and we're quite excited because we're now, to 300-meter depth instead of previously where we were at 200. One of the other exciting things we've done is we've completed a lot of geophysics along the Cowley prospect. This is a surface expression of the Cowley deposit projected to surface. We have this fault, but the geophysics that we've completed this year is suggesting we may have another subparallel trend here to the southwest. We have another target here to the south, and the extensions of these two legs are showing to be very promising as geophysics is highlighting them, and we hope to drill out these extents later this year. One of the most exciting parts of this project is when you look at what is the opportunity or how many deposits are there that are around 40 million tons of 1% copper as a headline grade that are open pittable. And there are only 4 undeveloped projects in the world. The first two, Masaniak in Afghanistan, Kalakuni in the DRC, are both conflict acids. So you really have Trilogy Metals, Arctic deposit in Alaska, and San Nicolas, which is a Teck Agnico Eagle joint venture in Mexico. This is a very, very unique opportunity in terms of this kind of tonnage, this kind of grade with a near surface aspect to it. So if we move a little further north, we're going to talk about the Chiefs trend. We completed geophysics, which has never been done before. And if you look in this gray area, I'm sure you can see my mouse. That's the old Little Chief mine that operated from 1967 to 1982 by Hud Bay, produced around 8.5 million tons of 1%, 1.5% copper, a low gold credit, a little bit of moly, 0.75 gold, a little bit of silver. So when the oil crisis of 82 occurred, price of fuel went up, copper collapsed to 60%, the mine shut down. And this entire land package was basically cobbled together by the Coyne family, who held it privately for 40 years. So there's been no significant modern exploration done in the last 40 years. Jason knew the Coyne family. He acquired the asset through the earn-in. Like I said, we've done all the expenditures, $12 million. We have 11 million shares to issue in 2 tranches, 5 million in 26 and 6 in 2029. But most importantly, all of these trends we've now started to drill, and we've experienced mineralization on the first several holes we've put in. So everyone is very excited about this because this is now going to become a new emerging trend, a middle of the package. So we have Valerie with a lot of success, and then we have the Little Chief footwall zone. So these are early stage exploration, not as advanced as Cowley. Cowley's had 2-3 years of drilling plus a whole bunch of historic drilling, and this is all kind of new discovery territory for us. So Arctic Chief, we're starting to work on delineating a resource to the northern half of it. So this is what we call the Arctic Chief to the best chance trend. And you'll see here, the geophysics lines up quite nicely. The drill holes in the north, sort of the south and the north, are lining up. And to give you some sense of scale, Cowley is about 800 meters long. So we have about a 1.2 kilometer trend here, heavily mineralized. This northern portion of the trend tends to be heavy copper gold, whereas Cowley tends to be copper moly for byproduct credits. So it's a very exciting time. We're fully funded. All our deposits are open. We still haven't delineated a resource, and that's our objective for this year. So here's where we're at. First half of the year, we completed about 70 holes, 88 holes for around 15,000 meters. For the latter half of the year, we're planning on doing 12,000 meters at Cowley Park, 10,000 meters at Little Chief, 5,000 at Best Chance and Arctic Chief. The last two, that 15,000 meter, I would think of that as a pool because depending on success, we might reallocate to different priorities. We've completed some preliminary met work. We're waiting for those results. You can expect to see those in the upcoming weeks. Continuing to do some ongoing geophysics, primarily downhole EM at Cowley and Little Chief. And then for the final end of the year, we hope to get what's called a Class 3 permit approval, which just really allows us unlimited flexibility to drill where we want. Currently, we're drilling on what's called a Class 1 that only allows us to drill in select spots based on a plan we submitted before we get the latest information. And then, again, depending on how the program unfolds and the success, we'd like to have a resource out in the latter part of H1 2026, and that'll be based on Cowley Park. So, you know, we're, again, fully funded. We have one very promising deposit that's still open, a long strike at depth with spectacular copper grades hovering around the 0.7, 0.8 to 1.5% with high grade sniffs of 7, 8, 9%, which is really quite unique for an open pitable copper deposit. Okay. That's really all I have for you, Alex.
No, thanks, Olav. That's excellent. A really, really interesting story. And looks like we can see the Yukon out there through your window. Is that, are you out?
It feels like the Yukon here. It's I'm up at my cabin, and it's a very similar climate and environment. Absolutely. So one of the points I guess I didn't mention is that our proximity to Whitehorse provides us with an enormous infrastructure advantage. So unlike a lot of projects in the Yukon that are extremely remote, we have hydro grid power adjacent to us. Everybody goes home at night. There's no camp. Our drilling costs around 250 to 260 meters Canadian. Sorry, $250 to $260 Canadian per meter, which is just staggering low given our proximity to infrastructure.
No helicopter support required when you've got a major town right next to you. And
I tell
Whitehorse
people,
is, I think, similar to Kalgoorlie, I believe, in terms of scale and services. And
Whitehorse is a full service community. It's sort of the central business hub of all of the Yukon. Population probably 25, 30,000 people. I tell people if you want to order a pizza from the drill rig, you can probably get it delivered there. So
That's a good hook.
Yes.
Yeah. So nice and easy. And I know you have really good, you enjoy really good relations with the First Nations. I know that's been, you know, you've worked hard at that, and you've got really good relations there. So that must make things a lot easier.
Yeah, that's a testament to, I think, Jason's objective right out of the gate. Let's ensure that the First Nations become partners, that they're on board right away. We have a very fluid and transparent process with them. Generally speaking, the way permitting works, there's usually a public consultation period. We actually do our consultation with them before we apply for our permit, so that really the consultation is complete when we make our submissions. And I think that's served us very well so far. So,
yeah, that's obviously a very important thing to get right from the beginning. So,
yes,
credit to you. Just one, probably got time for one more quick question. It's just a little bit exciting, the deep holes that you've done recently that have kind of gone a bit below the skarn, the last two releases that you've had. What do you think's going on there? I mean, is there some other mineralization system that you've just caught the top of, or is it too early to speculate?
Look, it's a very exciting time. I think we were quite surprised by the success we've had drilling the deep holes. It's only the first two holes that went below 250 meters of vertical. And we're highly encouraged by the widths. You know, we're getting 22 to 55 meters of high grade copper mineralization, a lot of bornite. The granodiorite was the intrusive, which initially we thought, or was initially not mineralized from what we had seen. And now we're seeing a lot of intense mineralization on all points. So this brings up sort of 2 points. Tells me that, you know, we've only been drilling sort of the scar mineralization, but we probably have a bigger system. And we've always felt that this land package was a massive system, which is why some of our, like the Arimcos, invested in us, because they said, look, you have a big system here. So my view is we've got a tiger by the tail here. And I think, look, we've only got 2 holes into it, but I don't want to say we've drilled the easy stuff, but the near surface material mineralization was quite strong. So, you know, we've got 3 rigs going to map out the scale of alteration and start vectoring in on trying to find a source. Where is this actually all coming from? And, you know, if you want to arm wave, hopefully it's a porphyry. But I think it's still too early to tell. Having said that, I think we're all optimistic that, you know, we're onto something big here. Just given the magnitude of the alteration, the tenor of the copper grades, it's a very exciting time.
Excellent. Well, we'll keep eyes on how it unfolds from here. That sounds really good, Olav. Thank you for your time. Sunday evening your time. So thank you very much for dialing in this evening, Olav, and really good to speak with you. Thanks for your presentation and going through the Q&A.
No, thank you for having me, Alex.
It's our pleasure. We'll move on to our next presentation now. So next up, we have Midas Minerals, ASX code MM1, which is a junior mineral exploration company with a primary focus on copper and precious metals. Midas will finalize its transformational acquisition of the Atavi Copper-Gold Silver project in Namibia this quarter, as it prepares to kick off high-impact resource and exploration drill programs from next quarter. And here to talk about the company today is Managing Director, Mark Calderwood. Welcome, Mark. Good to have you here. Please take it away when you're ready.
Thanks, Alex. No worries. I'll just hang on a minute. Share. Hope we can all see that. Today, I'm going to give you a bit of background on the transformational acquisition by Midas, is the Namibian copper silver gold project that we call Atavi. Won't dwell on that page. Exceptional asset. It was owned by a major zinc producer. It had a lot of money spent on the project. We think about 20 million US has been spent on the project in total. It's had a lot of drilling. It's had about 56 kilometers of core drilling. The project is quite large, about 1,800 square kilometres. There are many dozens of mineralised copper outcrops and drill holes, and many drill targets to be tested. In total, between the two Otavi projects, we have about 2,000 square kilometres. It's located in Namibia, located close to good infrastructure. Namibia is a Tier 1 African mining jurisdiction, with very supportive and very consistent fiscal terms. We have a solid team. We have a solid board and management with significant African experience. You can see some of the drill hits that have been intercepted on these deposits. Very high grade copper, silver for one deposit, and then copper, gold, and silver for another deposit. And we'll have a combination of those. That combination will vary from deposit to deposit. About 170 million shares on issue. Market cap's around 59 million. Board and management have about 8.7%. Associates and insiders have quite a bit of other stock as well. So it's a very tightly held stock. There's a few institutions on there now, but this is really early days in the transformation of Midas. The board, Sarah Kelly is our chair. Myself, I've had a lot of experience in Africa. I was the first CEO of Perseus Mining, so very experienced in West Africa and in Central Africa. Mick Wilson, a very experienced geologist on the board as well. Michael Boehm, a mining engineer. He was on the board with me at Perseus, so quite experienced in certainly as a project matures. And you got Mike Naylor as a corporate advisor. Mike was on the board a year ago, has stepped down, but still helps us out on things as we go. We have a very strong team in country now. So we have 3 geologists at the moment in country, and we have 2 backups in Australia that go in and out as required. And we're building up a nice, strong Namibian team that has experience. Some of these guys we got from the prior owners, Nexa. But it's fair to say the team is now ready for drilling. And that's something we wanted to get ready as the project acquisition completes. We'll hit the ground on drilling on Otavi. In the meantime, we'll be drilling on South Otavi sometime this month. We'll be drilling on South Otavi, and hopefully sometime next month or Q4 sometime, we'll be drilling on Otavi. Location, we're located north of Windhoek, the capital, about 3.5 hours. Not far from the Namibian gold area, which you might know from Weir Gold, or you might know from B2 Gold. B2's Gold's got the Otjikoto mine, which is quite close to us. It's about 25 kilometers away. Then you got the uranium guys closer to the coast in the desert area. You got the port at Walrus Bay. There's rail to site. There's good sealed roads all the way to site. Extensive grid power through our area. We also have about 100 kilometers away. We have a large smelter, which is starving for feed at the moment, so that's encouraging. That's owned by Sinomine. So some pretty big names in Namibia. Namibia is one of the top few countries in Africa in terms of the Fraser Institute. So it's a great place to work. Low cost, and where we are, we don't have the water problems. Some of the uranium guys have a bit of issue with water, but where we are, we've got much higher rainfall. We've got good groundwater. So we've got the groundwater, we've got the power, we've got the rail, and we're quite next door to South Africa, so you can get stuff manufactured very cheaply. Mining costs in Namibia are significantly lower than Western Australia. What are we looking for? We're looking for these high-grade, structurally controlled, sediment-hosted gold deposits. Copper, gold, silver deposits. The geology is actually the same geology as Zambia and Congo, but we don't have, it appears we don't have many of the big strata-bound deposits that go for kilometres. They tend to be constrained but very high grade, quite wide, some of them. T13 example here on the figure on the side there is about 25 metres wide. It's consistently high grade. You see it's mainly chalcocite, which is a very high grade copper mineral, produces a very high grade copper concentrate. It's a lot more chalcocite than there is chalcopyrite in T13. They come to surface. We know T13 comes to surface, and there's no deep Kalahari sands on top, so they're not that hard to find. And in fact, there are dozens of these deposits that have been found so far, but remain to be drill tested. So T13 was a new discovery made by the prior owners, Nexa, and it came to surface and it was just missed. There's been very little historic exploration in this area. Give you some idea, some of the copper intercepts. That's some of the shallow 20 meters at 4% from near surface, 17 meters at 16%, very high grade. As I mentioned, more than 20 million spent on the project to date. Only about 40% of the project area has been soil geochemmed, and only about a third of that has actually been assayed for gold. Nexa, we're not interested in gold. There's some pretty significant gold anomalies. We will test those along with the copper deposits, and as we work through a big long list of targets. There's a figure there on the figure on the left. You can see there's a 30-kilometer long belt of copper anomalies and copper outcrops surrounding a domal feature. T13 is just one of those. We've identified drill targets on multiple of the other ones. The figure on the right is just another cross-section of T13. You can see a bit how regular the grades are and how consistent the ore body is. So it will be open pit and underground target, T13. And that goes for all of them. So most of them come to surface or near surface. The other area that we're focusing on is the Deblin to Drykupi zone. Again, another 30 kilometers, many targets, many of them undrilled. You'll see that the recent drill hits at Deblin were quite impressive. It's about 15 to 17 meters, anywhere from 1.5 to 4% copper, bit of gold, bit of silver. Drykupi's, for instance, hasn't been drilled since the 1970s. It was discovered in the 70s. No work's been done on it in the last 50 years. So it's an interesting one because they got some pretty reasonable drill hits with copper and gold. And Harspettersport is another one. It's came up with some good results, shallow. And we believe there will be a lot more of these drill targets turn up. Once we get out on the ground, we check where they got geochemical results, where they got rock chips, and we rank the deposits and drill targets. So we plan to, once we get acquisition completed, we plan to put one resourced rig on Deblin to drill out a resource, one on T13, and we'll have one exploration rig testing the next top 10 or 15 targets, which once they become ready for any of those become ready for resource drilling, we will we'll put more diamond rigs on. So we'll have we hope to bring on another 2 diamond rigs next year as we ramp up drilling, looking for multiple targets, multiple deposits. Even though the area has 1 million ton copper deposits, we think that the likelihood is multiple deposits in the 200 to 400,000 ton range is the realistic target for these for this project. As I mentioned, great infrastructure in that area. There's a smelter. There's a town, rail, roads, mining. There's mining history in that area. We're very close to the Otjikoto gold mine, next to the Combat copper mine, so people understand it. There's plenty of people that worked underground there. So our strategy is to test, as I mentioned, to test multiple targets. We're looking for good grade copper, 2% better. We're looking for decent widths, 10-meter ore bodies that have good, clean metallurgy and can host, open pit and underground type ore bodies. South Atavi, it's next door to our Atavi project. We picked this up because we like the gold anomaly on there. There was a gold anomaly picked up, the gold anomaly defined about 28 years ago when gold crashed. It's just a geochemical anomaly at the moment, but there's quite a few values over 50, 100 ppb gold in wide space shallow drilling. And that's pretty significant for that part of the world. Normally the geochemistry is very subtle, so we're going to follow up that one in the near term. We've also got some copper targets on that project. It's Deblin style mineralization, so we'll follow up. Both of those in the interim while we're waiting for the Atavi project to come through the pipe. Give you some idea of the timeline. As I mentioned, at the moment, the team on site is what I call drill ready. They have sufficient capabilities now to look after multiple drill rigs. To start them off, they're going to commence drilling sometime this month on South Atavi. Then we'll wait for the completion of the acquisition. So the main part of the acquisition has happened. It's the transfer of the licenses to the target entity. Now, to acquire the shares in the target entity, we need a tick off from the Competitions Commission, Namibian Competitions Commission, and we're hoping to get that Q4, and then we'll start fire up with 3 rigs as soon as we get that, and then straight away we'll put out an initial resource estimate for T13. So it's a lot of news flow, hopefully starting in Q4, and then we'll into next year we'll ramp up. We do go through the wet season, but we believe we can drill through the wet season on the resource drilling at least. So there will be, and the wet season in that part of the world can be quite short, but we just don't know. Last year was quite wet, so it's hit and miss in Namibia, but certainly ramp up in the second half of Q1 2026 and maybe go to 5 rigs. That would be ideal to try and prove up as many tons of contained copper at good grades as we can. So it's quite a unique project. A lot of exploration potential in an area that's hosted big deposits. So it's all about location and geology, grade, and it's a cheap place to develop a mine. Infrastructure, it's got very good infrastructure. If you're going to be in Africa, you really want infrastructure.
And you've inherited quite a sorry to interrupt there, Mark, but you inherited quite a rich data set there as well, 56,000 meters of drill core. And
a lot of geophysics. Our Aussie geophysicists are going through all that, picking out targets.
You've got a incredible platform to grow on.
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
And the way that transaction works is it's a $10 million US acquisition, but we only pay 3 up front, and the remainder come in based on economics. So once we finish the feasibility study, we pay another 3. On a decision to mine, we pay another 2. And then after 12 months after commercial production, there's another 2. So really only 3 million up front to get $20 million worth of spend.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good value. We'll have to sort of wrap it up there, well, in a moment or two, Mark, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Did you?
I think this last page is, people can read that at leisure. Summarizes the company. It's an exceptional project. Plenty of room for discoveries and good metals. There's essentially no lead zinc in any of the deposits that we plan to drill in the short term. And we have the experience in Africa, extensive experience in Africa. So it's not new to us. And Namibia is a pretty forgiving country.
Very good. Well, thanks, Mark. Really appreciate you running through the opportunity there at Midas. That sounds fantastic.
Thanks.
All the best
Thanks,
with
Alex.
it. We'll keep a close eye on your progress.
Okay.
Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks. Cheers.
So we'll just move to our last presentation today from FMR Resources, code is FMR, as an ASX-listed exploration company focused on discovering and developing critical minerals that power the global clean energy transition, led by its flagship Yarwun Copper-Gold Moly project in Chile. FMR's core strategy is to identify and explore assets that move the needle in the global supply of critical minerals. I'm here to talk about the company today is FMR's Managing Director, Oliver Kiddie. Please take it away, Oliver.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks everybody for dialing in and listening to the FMR story, which is a very new story. I'll take you through our transaction, which we put to the ASX in an announcement on the 16th of June, and we've had a very aggressive timeframe since then. And I'll talk to the results and the upcoming drilling. Just a quick overview of the FMR corporate snapshot. We've got just shy of 41 million shares on issue, a market cap of around 16 mil at 40 cents. I think we're just north of that today. We've got cash of just over 4.2 mil, gives us an EV of around 12 million. So it's still very lowly valued. The board of directors, Pat Burke, corporate lawyer, myself, Geo, Justin Werner, needs no introduction internationally. He's the managing director of Nickel Industries, so a plus $3.5 billion company, the largest exclusive nickel producer on the planet. Bill Oliver, Geo, and Ian Hobson, our co-sec. As part of bringing the new asset in, the Chilean Yarwun project, into FMR, we restructured the company. You can see the major shareholders there, the big name there being Mark Creasy. So I pitched this to Mark Creasy. He got exactly what we were trying to do at FMR and was very happy to jump on board. And you can see there, he has gone substantial. A quick overview of the FMR strategy. We're looking to identify these assets that move the needle. This Yarwun project that I'll talk to today is a perfect example of that. We'll leverage off our corporate ability, technical ability, and our register strength to transact on these assets that we identify and get out there and discover. So value add through the drill bit. So quickly onto the project itself. So the acquisition is the Yarwun joint venture. So we've signed a binding term sheet with Southern Hemisphere Mining, their ASX listed, ASX SUH. We can earn up to 60% across 4 concessions of the Yarwun project, so the southern portion of the Yarwun project. We need to spend 3 million and drill 6,000 meters to earn 50%. To earn 60%, we spend another 10 and 2.5 in cash or script, but have post that it's reversed to pro forma. So SUH FMR equals spend. We have in-country expatriate management as part of the deal, and I think the 2 most important things on this slide to take away, we have a community agreement in place, and exactly where we are in Chile. We're not high Andes plus 4.5, 5,000 meters like the Filo del Sols of the world. We're down on the flat on the coastal Cordillera. We're 1,200 to 1,500 meters above sea level. This is an area that's really rich in infrastructure. We're 350 k's north of Santiago, 24 k's from the town of Combabala, that's circa 13,000 people. We're 5 k's from grid power, 20 k's from a sealed airstrip, and 200 k's to the nearest port. The Yarwun project itself, it really does sit in the land of the giants. We're 65 k's away from Los Palambres, which is a giant deposit, 5.8 billion tonnes at about 0.53 copper, owned by Antofagasta. A very interesting mid-sized deposit, which sits literally 8 kilometres to the west of Yarwun, is El Espino. That's owned by Pucobre. That's circa 230 million tonnes at about that 0.59 copper equivalent. Interestingly, RCF tipped in 90 million for 23% of that. That's 90 million US for 23% of that project in December last year. So we've got a developing mine looking to produce in 2027, literally 8 k's from where we're exploring. The Yarwun project itself has already got proven fertility. We've got a plus 6 kilometre long corridor with porphyries already identified and resources around 3 resources that have been delineated to date by Southern Hemisphere. Southern Hemisphere had a resource of a global resource of 169 million tonnes at 0.43 copper equivalent. They've just increased that to 218 million tonnes at around the same grade, with an exploration target on top of that to plus 300 million tonnes. So you can see a growing resources base for SUH. The deal that we've done with FMR is to come in and look at the blue sky potential from an exploration side of things. The first target that we're looking to test among many is this giant southern porphyry target, which I'll talk to in this presentation. It's a very large geochemical, geophysical anomaly. The geophysics suggests that it's at least 1.5 k's by 1.5 k's, and the porphyry itself has not been drill tested at depth. The other important thing is we're just not about the southern porphyry target. We've been out on ground since completing the transaction. We've got a growing pipeline of untested targets, which we will release to the market as we complete the work over the coming months. The project itself, you can see here the defined resources of Southern Hemisphere, the central Cerro and Ferro deposits, which sit north of our joint venture. The deal came with some very, very good data sets. The most recent of which is this magnetotelluric survey, which was completed in December last year, and that's really driving what we believe are the dimensions of this very large porphyry system at depth. Since completing the transaction, we've been out on the ground and done some field checking, some validation of geochemical data and some surface mapping there. As part of the surface mapping, geological mapping, structural mapping that was completed, we released this to the market. We identified some alteration signatures that we can see at surface where this porphyry actually outcrops. The alteration assemblages that we're seeing at surface, the argillic style alteration, the silicification in the shallow drilling suggest that we're dealing with a porphyry system, but very, very high in this porphyry system. In addition to that, there's a series of geophysical targets, geophysical data sets that came with the project, namely the MT, which is the most recent, which you can see here on the left-hand side of screen. So the green outline there is the high resistivity zone of the MT survey. So that's circa 1.2 k across, and that's the core of the system of this MT target. We've got these coincidental data sets, the IP resistivity, the IP chargeability, the MT resistivity, all overlapping with the magnetics and the geochem at surface and the geology telling us that we've got an outcropping porphyry. We've got these overlapping data sets, which are pretty well characteristic of a very large copper porphyry system. It's not just the geochemical and the geophysical targets. There is some shallow drilling here that has been completed across the southern porphyry target. There's been 6 shallow drill holes completed, 5 of which are drilled to less than 200 metres. Hole 24, which was completed back in 2022, targeting a geochem anomaly. You can see on the right-hand side of screen here some of the mineralisation, the copper mineralisation that was intersected in this hole. So you've got about 5 metres running about 0.5% copper there, which you can see the drill hole just skimmed down the edge of this chargeability feature and into the edge of this magnetic feature from the mag model. You can see the MT model continuing at depth, lining up with the red IP resistivity anomalies here, which make it a very, very compelling target. So the compelling drill target is obviously this MT at depth, but we've got really good confidence that we're dealing with a very fertile porphyry system. You only need to look next door at the central Cerro and Ferro deposits. There's some really, really good mineralisation there, obviously, in terms of what's been delineated in terms of a resource base today, but also the grade within those resources. There is some high-grade material in Central and Cerro. You can see here some of the historic drilling up to nearly 1.5% copper equivalent at depth as you get into the core of these porphyries. So we're confident that we're dealing with a porphyry and it is mineralised. Of those 6 shallow drill holes that I talked to into the geochem and IP features of Southern Porphyry, hole 38 drilled in 2023 hit 164 metres at 0.16 copper equivalent from 2 metres. Now, that's clearly not economic in grade, but it does tell you within a fertile porphyry system. The lower third of that drill hole actually finished in porphyry with 2 metres at 1.45% copper equivalent. So that's that validation that this porphyry is actually carrying some good grade. So first phase drilling for Southern Porphyry. We've planned 4,000 metres of drilling, a minimum of 4,000 metres of drilling across 4 targets. You can see here target A on the left-hand side of screen, target A stepping right back up high on the mountain, coming back down through to test all of these models, the mixture of the IP chargeability, the IP resistivity, down the edge of the mag feature and into the MT at depth. Target area D is nearly 1 kilometre away back to the west, testing where this MT anomaly appears to project very shallow, continuing on through the MT anomaly at depth. Target area A will take down to a depth of 1,600 metres, but we're setting these drill holes up with the flexibility to drill a parent hole with daughters off. So we can pull back to some 800-900 metres in this drill hole, fan off and drill 6 to 8 daughter holes off the bottom of this, which allows us to test additional features outside of the main first drill hole, and obviously also cuts down on drill costs dramatically. Target area D will be taken down to at least 1,000 metres to begin with. Same deal. We'll set these drill holes up with optionality to have a parent with daughter holes off. Just a bit of a fly through here for people that are non-technical. So this is flying through from the north, heading to the south, looking at the Southern Porphyry target to give you an idea of dimensions and actual size of the target here we're dealing with. The block models you can see there are Southern Hemisphere's delineated resources today of Central Cerro and Ferro deposits, but you can see the overlapping data sets here of the IP, chargeability, resistivity, the MT continuing at depth, all centrally located around this magnetic anomaly, which, like I said at the top, is one of these classic copper porphyry systems. So you can see the size and the scale of what we're dealing with here at Southern Porphyry and why we're so excited to get in and drill this in the coming weeks. So why are we targeting these copper porphyry systems? A perfect example here from a junior perspective is Atex Resources. So they're TSXV listed. They got control of the Valeriano deposit or the prospect back in 2018. They've taken that from a 4 mil market cap Canadian to 650 mil market cap today. A lot of that was off the back of applying MT and drilling into that MT feature. You can see here, like I said, Atex got control of this in 2018, but Valeriano has been explored for since the late 80s by Phelps Dodge and the like. It's only since completing this MT survey, which you can see on the right-hand side of the screen here, which there's been a step change in the understanding of the porphyry system driving Valeriano. An IP survey was completed in 2011. That was the drilling into that, didn't hit anything, suggested they were too shallow. Come fast forward to 2022, they completed the MT survey, drilled into that, and it was a step change for the company. You can see some of the intercepts there, 1,045 metres at 0.53 copper equivalent, 1,270 metres at 0.59 copper equivalent. Very, very good grades, Very, very large deposit. The thing to take away for investors is the size of this MT expression at surface, circa 1.5 k's across, eerily similar to what we've found at Southern Porphyry. The company that completed the MT survey, Southern Rock Geoscience, completed the MT survey for us at Southern Porphyry. The commentary is it's a dead ringer for Valeriano. I think the important thing to take away is the surface expression of this circa 1.5 k's has already delineated 1.45 billion tonnes to date in copper resource. We think we're absolutely in the right jurisdiction. We saw John talk to it at the top of this virtual conference. You know, Chile accounts for 24% of the world's copper production in 2024. I think one of the big things is BHP doubling down, diversification away from iron ore, doubling down in Chile. They're spending $13 billion US over the next decade. In terms of discoveries, John talked to that at the top. You know, discoveries are falling off a cliff. There's pressure here from a price perspective. We need more discoveries. We need to delineate more copper tonnes. Filo del Sol, in terms of depth, Filo del Sol, everybody's probably familiar with that. Known about since the 70s, 80s, the epithermal system above. BHP and Lundin took over Filo for 4.5 billion Canadian about a year ago. It's only since drilling into the depths below the epithermal system that they're seeing the top of the porphyry, which sits at around 600 metres, which is the main big porphyry driving Filo del Sol. Valeriano, which we just talked to, the top of that porphyry is about 1,200 metres. What we're looking for, we believe the system will be the top of our system at Southern Porphyry will be anywhere between 400 and 600 metres, and we'll take those holes right down to 1,600, as I said, in target area A. So as I said at the top, you know, we've had a very, very aggressive work program. We brought this transaction to market on the 16th of June. Since then, we've got out, we've completed the field mapping, we've completed the geophysical reprocessing and the associated modelling. We've generated the phase 1 drill targets, and we're currently seeking drill approvals and preparations for drill pads, etc. Logistics are well and truly underway. We're expecting those approvals in the next 2 weeks with a view to be drilling by the last week of September. So very, very aggressive, like I said, but that pretty much talks to the backers of FMR and what they wanted to see, which was get out, identify these assets and get in and drill them. So the investment case is pretty compelling. Tier 1 location, we've identified a company making asset whereby we've got a minimum spend of $1 million in one drill hole. So I look at that as a $1 million option fee on potentially a company making discovery. The right commodity, copper, all the tailwinds of the EV evolution and electrification. We've put together a very, very good team which is able to deliver from the embryonic stage through discovery, development and production. And like I talked to there, we're going to have very near-term news flow with drilling underway in the next 3 to 4 weeks. That's it. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Oliver. That's very exciting. And you're on the cusp of starting to drill very soon. I saw your most recent announcement. It sounds like things are imminent. So Southern Porphyry is huge as a target. It's, what did you say, 1.5 by 1.5 by 2 k's? Is that
correct?
Yeah, which is immense. Which is very exciting. Just in terms of timeline for the news flow, one question we had was, I mean, those deep holes can take a little while. So what's the potential timeline from once you start drilling to ultimately releasing your first assay, I guess?
Yeah, so each drill hole, obviously, the deeper it goes, the longer it takes, Alex. Target area A, where we're going to take it down to 1,600 metres, that'll take around 5 weeks to drill. Target area D will take 3 to 4 weeks to drill, depending on drilling conditions, which we believe will be pretty good. So obviously, off the back of that, we'll send samples off for assay. You're looking at 4 to 6 weeks turnaround for assays. So we should have an answer by Christmas on Southern Porphyry in terms of if it's mineralised and as big as what we think it is.
Excellent. Well, Christmas is coming quickly, so it'll be really not that long to wait. Well, that's exciting. And you touched on it briefly at the beginning there. Obviously, you've had a Yandel, so Mark Creasy joined the register recently. So has Mark sort of had input into the strategy, I guess?
Yeah, I went to Mark as an initial investor on this and pitched to him. Obviously, people that know me understood that I was general manager for Mark Creasy's exploration for a decade. So know Mark very, very well, understand what he likes to invest in. He very much got what we were trying to do with FMR, this strategy of identifying assets that move the needle. We'll transact on them, leveraging our abilities and get in there and create value by the drill bit. I think one of the big things from Mark Creasy's perspective that he liked was the permitting scenario in Chile, whereby we can get drill permitted inside 30 days, where he's used to having to deal with the long lead times of native title working in Australia. The opportunity to get in here and explore and turn over targets very quickly in Chile was very attractive to Mark Creasy.
Yeah, understandably. Well, thanks very much, Oliver. We'll have to wrap it up there. We've had a good, great presentation from you, and really appreciate you taking time to dial in and go through the opportunity in front of you right now with FMR. And this also concludes the end of the Copper Conference today. So thanks to you, Oliver, and all of our presenters today, and for everybody that dialed in. Really appreciate everybody's time and input, and we'll make this recording available through the NWR YouTube channel later today and send it to everybody. So thanks to everybody once again, and we'll conclude it there. Thank you.